All right, welcome back to another Wright Stew podcast. I'm Paul Stewart.
And I am Brian Wright, and I don't even know what day we're on. You're in a different coast still.
We're going coast to coast, Brian. Coast to coast. I'm still in San Francisco. If you're watching on the YouTube, I've got this. So I'm in a hotel right next door to the stadium. You can see the outfield lights just over my shoulder here. So, otherwise, if I look directly outside, I just see a brick wall. One of those situations when you get the beautiful view of a brick wall, and I think an alley down below, maybe. But got to go to another Giants ball game a couple nights ago. It was Giants Diamondbacks. So I saw two of the three games in the set. Diamondbacks ended up winning the set, but the second game I got to go to was actually Korean Heritage Night, Brian. Korean Heritage Night. San Francisco, a melting pot of cultures. A lot of Korean folks out to see the ball game, and and I didn't know a whole lot about this guy, but the Giants have Jung Lee, who is a Korean ball player. He was it wasn't Jung Lee night, but they gave away a Jung Lee jersey with kind of the Korean national colors on it, some flair for the country. And Jung Lee batted fourth both games I saw him. Doesn't look like a traditional four-hole hitter. Kind of has the very kind of Asian swing where he's kind of pulling off the ball a little bit, a little stiff arm, front bar with the arm. But really cool night. Every time he comes up, that they give the old, they say Jung Lee. Love him around here, man. So on Korean night, he was featured prominently on like the video board. He did some kind of fun stuff around K-pop and some different foods. But the most spectacular and coolest thing, last at bat, hits a 3-run bomb.
Oh, Jung Lee night. I mean, that's impressive. I would say this. I haven't. I grew up with a couple of half Koreans.
Okay.
Robert and Michael Cavness. Much more country accent than mine, but still had the Korean look. They had beautiful children. Just, you get the nice little, not so pale, crusty white that I'm pimping right here. You got some native. You got something that's a little bit darker than I am probably. But, yeah, it's how many Koreans are in? I mean, how is the Korean Baseball League as a whole?
I think it's pretty good. I had a couple buddies that played over in Korea. I remember one of the things they told me, though, there was quite a bit of gambling that goes on in Korea on the baseball games.
By the players?
So some players, so that's what I was going to share. He said some players are kind of on the take, right?
Ooh. Okay.
And I remember he was telling me that, so they were playing a game, runner on third base. Pitcher throws a wild pitch that is very wild. Like a professional ball player should not be throwing one this wild. The runner on third base, though, doesn't go home because they're both trying to have different objectives. Neither is trying to win the game. They're both trying to cover some sort of spread.
Gosh.
And he's like, it was the most odd thing he's ever seen on a baseball field because, like, that's what
it was
going.
Pretty obvious.
Yeah. So that was pretty wild. So again, nothing was ever confirmed, but that was his from being there for a few months and kind of understanding the kind of what was going on in that culture. That was what he.
Do they eat dog over there? Do they eat different things?
I didn't ask. I don't know that. I don't know if that's a thing over there. I don't know. I know. I had some of my Dominican friends tell me that they ate cat when they growing up.
I remember that too. I did too. I remember that too. It seems like back in the day, and I don't think I'm making this up, it seemed like there was a Chinese restaurant that was legitimately shut down in a town that I grew up in or near, and that was legitimately feeding domestic animals as chicken.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So like you were getting the.
You ever go there?
Yeah. You were getting sesame kitty. You weren't getting sesame chicken.
That's, I don't know. I've been to plenty of restaurants and honestly probably
You probably have
unknowingly,
had something you didn't think you had before. You put enough
yeah.
sauce on anything, it's not bad. Hey, I want to jump to
Yeah.
something else. You made me think about it, and we haven't talked about it in a minute. But how about the commissioner for MLB baseball saying
I was
that?
gonna say, dude, we were just talking gambling, and we've just talked about this a little bit. So finish your statement, Brian. Finish.
No. I mean, you were getting ready to say it. I mean, obviously, he come out and said, "Hey, now Sheila Joe Jackson and Pete Rose that they are dead. Their lifetime banned. I guess their lifetime's over, so they can now be, post death put into the Hall of Fame." And I felt like, dude, if I was Pete, I don't know what kind of relationship Pete Rose had with his family, but I'd be like, screw you, bro. I'm not going to. I don't want to be a part of this. It meant a lot to Pete. He just passed away. He was the hit king. Yes, admittedly, he made mistakes. I think the older generation that's a little bit older than us, I heard a couple of perspectives that I guess I didn't take. I guess he lied about it for a number of years and then eventually admitted it. I'm just on the take that the moral clause has to go out the window a little bit. I know that's taken into account with the MLB Hall of Fame, but just from the history of the game that is built on stats, when you have the guy who has the most hits that's ever been recorded is not in the Hall of Fame, something doesn't feel right about that to me. And I would be like, forget it, dude. I mean, again, his kids may have I don't know what their situation is, or I think, was it you who knew one of Pete Rose's kids?
So, yeah, a guy I know was roommates with Pete Rose Jr. in the minor leagues, and they did not have a great relationship, the father son. And like his dad would call, he wouldn't say, "Hey, Pops is calling Dad." He would say, "Oh, the hit king's calling," like, and not in an affectionate way. So not, and I think when you're at that level and that hyper obsessed with anything, whether it's hits or technology or whatever your occupation is, being a doctor, when you get to such a high level and are that just one track minded, I think you don't have the same interaction with people that a normal relationship would warrant, right? So I've heard he's not warm and fuzzy. I mean, clearly he's dead now, but was never like the super affectionate fella, and was very self-centered. Is what I've heard through kind of some stories.
And I would say, to be as great as he was, it's hard to be great at anything, like truly great, the 1% of the 1% of the 1%. It's hard to be balanced, right?
Yeah.
You think about Jordan and some of his relationships. He seems to have pretty decent relationships with his kids now. But you just think about the greats that did it for any length of time. You can't be balanced. I think there's a level of selfishness that is required to be a great athlete.
Or like just not an athlete, but great at anything in life.
I think that's probably true too. Yeah.
It's tough. Yeah,
because you've got to look out, whether it be social settings, whether it be, doing anything else that may affect what you're trying to do. You've got to eliminate those things, which ultimately you're doing for yourself.
Yeah.
think about even from a working out. I bet if you did like a psychological breakdown, I know you got the new tech job. I wonder, did they do one of these psychological breakdowns? It's like, hey, you meet up.
I've done those. I'm not a big fan of them. I kind of break those when I do them because I'm not conventional in a lot of ways, just the way I live. So I did one in an old job one time, and I did it the first time, like, oh, your results are weird, do it again. I did it like another time, like, I'm not doing this again. But like my results were so funky because I didn't meet, like, usually you're like either type A or you're type, all these things. Like I didn't qualify for any of them. So they're like, oh, I was like, just who cares?
Well, and I don't think about it, but I think it is interesting. I bet if you put the athletes, and I guess a lot, I would imagine most athletes, and there's exceptions to every rule, but most athletes are a little bit more selfish, a little bit more self-absorbed, and if you get to the level that Pete was, man, you have to be obsessed. I mean, switch hitter, played almost every position, and was pretty good at them.
For a long time, yeah.
Yeah, for 24 years in the big leagues. 24 years. I'd imagine the ego that comes with that as well is hard to fit in one room, or a house. I mean, much less a teenage kid, right? That when they go through different things, sometimes you got to eat your ego and try to not necessarily get on their level, but communicate in a way that, there's a real back and forth there as they age. I imagine it's really tough to be the son or daughter of a super famous, successful person.
Yeah, I did see him one time in Vegas. There was like where was that? The Mandalay Bay. I can't remember where I was at, but there was like a sports memorabilia shop. And he would, I guess, once a month or something, he would just sit in the back and sign autographs. And I remember I was at a work thing, and I had to be from like one place to another. And I walked by, I'm like, freaking Pete Rose just sitting back there. And if I'd had a little more time, I would have stopped and went back there and just said hello. Like that would, but I had to, I was kind of running late to something. So I was like, but I saw it. That's wild. But dude, I hate this decision. I really don't like it. He did say that he didn't do it for a long time, so I guess lied technically about it. Then he always said, I bet on my team to win. He never bet against his team. And then he was actually signing baseball. You could pay him like $100 to say, I bet on baseball, Pete Rose. Like he was fully embraced it. And then, I guess for pay. But I get what the commissioner is saying, but it's like, if you keep him out his whole life, just keep him out.
I agree. Like, that's kind of where I'm at.
Jackson's been dead for 70 years. Like, why now?
That's right.
Keep him out. And Pete Rose is in the Hall of Fame. He has stuff in the Hall of Fame. He just does not have a plaque commemorating Pete Rose in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
Right. So I don't like that move. I haven't read a whole lot. I haven't been able to hear what other folks think. I'm not a fan of it. My thought was, you banned him. You had this whole thing about him his whole life being out of baseball or out of baseball Hall of Fame. Keep him out.
Yeah.
Yes. And we've all and again, you mentioned kind of like the quote unquote moral clause. If that's the case, man, there's Ty Cobb shouldn't be in there. Yeah, there's a lot of people that did some things that were not, by 2025 standards, not morally acceptable at all, right? So it's not the hall of moral goods. If that's the case, then there's a lot of different players that are going to be in that hall, right? But man,
I agree. I agree with everything you're saying. Taking it a different route, Pete Rose is coming up today, in today's time. What is he worth as a player? Does he find his way onto the field with him not hitting a bunch of bombs? Is he as relevant?
I mean, what his career average was 303. I want to say, I don't have any numbers pulled in front of me. I think it was just a touch over 300. Had a lot of at bats, played a lot of games. Yeah, he played in that era when you were playing every day, right? So he didn't take many days off. I think about that a lot with a lot of the players that we grew up watching. I'll get those feeds every once in a while that it has won an All-Star game, and it has these guys' numbers at the break, and they're 30 home runs, 85 RBIs at the break, and stuff like that. I'm like, and then I look at Juan Soto's numbers, and I'm like, or even Shohei Ohtani, they're good, but I mean, I don't look at them as like,
Wow.
oh, these are video game numbers. And again, I know we're talking probably a lot of steroid era kind of lineups and things like that.
Yeah.
But at the same time, if you're paying somebody $700 million, dude, you got to be batting 350. Like Aaron Judge right now. Aaron Judge is worth every dollar.
Yeah.
Homeboy's hitting 400, leading the league. Triple crown right now. Triple crown. Yes, Aaron Judge. But yeah, I mean, again, and I don't show how he pitches. He hadn't pitched in a couple of years though. So I don't know, man. There's so many guys. To answer your question, I think yes, definitely Pete Rose finds his way on the field. I think that's who he was, right? He is going to fight for everything. I don't know how well he does in today's clubhouse. I think he's probably fighting everybody.
Yeah, feisty, which I think a lot of times we kind of like to see that now. We talk about that as coaches. Like, you got to have some of that in you, and then you need to be able to back those guys off. You can't put it in people that it's not in, I don't think. You're either born with that kind of fire and competitiveness, or you're not. And there's only so much you can do to kind of create it. I mean, it's really tough, man. I mean, it's interesting though from a perspective. I mean, he had so many years where he struck out a handful of times and just figured out a way. Like, he's playing on the AstroTurf. That hair flowing and diving it. I mean, he was just such a staple for so long. It's just an interesting thought process.
Yeah, and again, I don't like some of these guys' contracts. So Pete Rose, MVP, Rookie of the Year, 17-time All-Star, 3 World Series, only 3 batting titles, which seems out. Yeah, and I was right, 303 career average, but all time.
That's awesome that you knew that off the top of your head.
Most games played ever, most plate appearances ever, most at bats ever, and most hits ever. I mean, that's
getting it done, dude. That's relevant any era, I would argue.
Yeah.
Hey, I want to talk about somebody else a little bit that reminds me, just from a competitive standpoint, at bat. Have you seen this Jacob Wilson kid for the A's?
I saw some stuff come across. I didn't play with his dad, but I knew his dad a little bit. Jack Wilson.
Oh, that's cool.
When I was over at the Pirates. Yeah. So, but I saw something, and this may be what you're touching on, but something about him just being super aggressive at the plate. Is that what you're going for?
Well, a couple of things. So through 100 at bats, give or take. I was trying to look it up as we were talking. So roughly 100 at bats. He struck out only 10 times, and I think that's higher up than it was. I'm sorry. He struck out 9 times through 161 at bats, which is incredible. But he's only walked. He's up to 7 times. But it took to like the 86th at bat before he walked. But my man is hitting. A couple of things come to mind. We talk about he's hitting 360 through 162 at bats.
Okay,
which is pretty awesome. But his what's one of the things to measure? Not exit velo, but bat speed. Maybe is that something that they talk about now?
Bat speed, yeah.
His is one of the lowest.
So like Luis Ariz.
He's a 66.
Yeah, I think Ariz was like 64 or something.
Yeah. So he's one of the low guys. And it's just something, too. My man is hitting 360 and got 5 home runs, playing shortstop for the A's, obviously big league. And, so many of these stats get, we're kind of not quite there, but we start hearing about what you got to be to get on somebody's radar, somebody's list. And it's like, you could argue one of the best young hitters in the MLB has none of that shit that they care about. He just knows how to put the ball in play a lot. Super aggressive. He has so many at bats where he sees his average pitches that he sees per at bat is like 3.03. So barely over 3 pitches he sees in an at bat and hitting 360. Man, I just like how he competes, man. I've seen a bunch of swings. They did a little show on him on the MLB Network, I think last night, or maybe it was earlier this morning. It was he's just a really interesting guy how he competes. And it reminds me from the Pete Rose standpoint that, hey, he's not going to hit a ton of bombs, but man, he knows how to find. He can hit bad baseballs. He can hit good base. When I say bad baseball, balls outside of the zone. Yeah, and he can hit balls in the zone. He can hit inside pitches. He can hit outside pitches. He can hit up. He can hit down. I mean, it's just everything he finds a way to put barrel on. And I think there's not really a stat. I mean, there is. It's called average. But there's not really a measurable that people talk about that defines, like, this is a really, really, really good player. And first of all, he plays for the Ace, and nobody's talking about him. But man, he's a good hitter.
A's are having a pretty good year. I mean, they've got some good young talent. Hopefully, when they get to Vegas, they can start keeping some of their guys. I mean, I think about all those late '80s and kind of early 2000s A's teams, and could have been like late '80s, early '90s was true kind of a little dynasty. And then again, the early 2000s. Had they been able, again, we've talked about Moneyball. Scott Hatteberg wasn't the best player on that team. It was Tim Hudson, Barry Zito, and Mark Mulder. If they could have paid those three guys and had Billy Koch still closing the door on the back end, and Eric Chavez, and kept Giambi and kept Miguel Tejada, right? It's like those are the guys that were moving the needle. I mean, they're some good ball players, man. If they could have kept those guys, then
they were either all-stars or on the edge of being all-stars. And it's just interesting, the thought process. Obviously, Judge is tearing it up this year, but there's a lot of other guys. You mentioned them already. Sosa's just having an okay year. You know, it's still early, I guess. What seems weird to me, or not weird, it's just the reality. It has not gotten warm yet. Sosa really don't start going till we get to that. Yeah, till it gets hot. Yeah. And so I think no,
dude, it is cold in San Francisco. I was wearing my puppy jacket and hat, and it's in the 50s. It's cold out here. Didn't see. So Willie Adames, former Brewer, getting paid $26 million a year, hitting 222. Hit a home run. One of the games I saw was like, again, just think back to like the days when we were, kind of growing up watching the ball game. And
222 wouldn't got you in you'd have been sitting down real quick.
You weren't making $26 million a year.
Absolutely. Hey, Schwarber he's on a hot streak right now. I don't know if you've seen his radar. I think he's hit 2 or 3 bombs in 2 or 3 days. Or he hit 2 bombs, hit a walk-off the other night. It was awesome.
Yeah.
I want to jump to something else before we have to go. Have you seen, has the NBA draft lottery hit your radar?
I mean, Cooper Flag, buddy, going to Dallas. They have a 1.3% chance Dallas had to. I mean, the NBA is full of more conspiracy theories in the NBA about stuff like that than any league.
And LeBron kind of led the way. He was on the McAfee show, and when he left Cleveland, he gave like a wink, wink, and then all of a sudden they get the first pick. I mean, it made it seem like he didn't do anything to tamper those kind of conspiracies. You know, it's like, hey, you get rid of Luka, you're not going to win here. We need a good player in LA because that's a big market for us. We'll make sure you get Cooper Flag, and we'll backfill you, and you'll keep your job because you look like a moron right now trading what some people claim to be a top 5 player.
I didn't know how much people love Luka in Dallas. I had no idea.
Well, the GM didn't either. He basically said that. He said I had no idea how much. It's like, dude, how dumb. Unless you knew this was happening on the back. Hey, we're not going to beat the best teams with Luka. He plays no defense. But if we let him go to LA, wink, wink, nod, nod, we're going to figure out how to recover from this and have Cooper Flag.
Yeah, generational type of guy. I get like we don't watch a ton of it. It's starting to watch a little more. The playoffs are getting really hot, but man, and not being in the Dallas area, like just.
Oh yeah, people are big fans.
I mean, they love Luka over there, dude.
But what Luka's done, and it kind of made sense from one aspect. Like they were showing highlights when he first came into the league, Paulie, and he looked like he looked more athletic. Now he looks like he's eating like a half of himself, right? And he's He's like me, except he's 6 whatever he is, and a lot better player, a lot better looking, and a lot richer. But he just looked way thicker in his outfit and his uniform. And now you've got, you got Cooper coming in. I tell you what was interesting about Cooper that I was kind of surprised by. Only a 35.5-inch vertical.
Wait, who's that? Cooper Flag?
Yeah.
35.5. What's your vertical, big boy?
My best when I was still playing was 33.5. So I was still less than him, but I was never a basketball player. But we did.
You're never going to be the number 1 overall pick in the NBA draft either.
No. I expected something closer to 40. Like that's kind of the number of athletes. It's like, hey, and again, I know he's white, but he's going to be the first white American drafted since the 70s or whatever it was.
Yeah.
And so I expected a little bit more hops from Cooper Flag. He
is like 6'9", so you don't need as much to get up and over there. I have no idea what my highest vertical was. We did some of that with, I think it was the Pirates in spring training. They're doing a lot of those kind of metrics and stuff 1 year in spring. And, like, as pitchers, you're like, it doesn't matter. Like, who cares?
That's right.
And they had, the way they were measuring it, they had one of those mats. And I guess you would jump up and they would base, like, however long you were in the air, they would time it and then calculate. That means you were 30 inches, however long it was. And so us being pitchers just started screwing around with it. And you're supposed to jump up and keep your legs, pretty straight. But we were jumping up and doing, like, skateboard moves and trying to see how long we could. And then just, like, literally, like, landing on our side and getting, like, 50-inch vertical.
Good, you were taking that real serious, Folly. Let's go.
Yeah. And this was so for folks who don't know, there's a big thing within professional baseball, definitely. And I don't know if it trickles down to college, but a big thing where position players and pitchers, they love each other, but in a very brotherly way. It's like pitchers aren't athletes.
Non-athletes.
And pitchers are always, we're the best athletes.
That's right.
But after, so coming out of high school, I was, played all the positions, outfield, first base, pitcher, played basketball. Yeah. And to be fair, I think most pitchers are pretty good athletes. Coming out, once you get into pro ball, though, and you stop having to do athletic things as much, you do kind of lose. I definitely know by my 10th year playing, I was still a good athlete, but I was far less athletic than I was as an 18 or 19-year-old because I just wasn't.
Yeah, I was just playing multiple sports. Yeah,
and because you hear it so much that you start to like, we don't want you catching a pop-up on the infield. We don't want you we don't want you doing anything, basically. Just throw the ball and get out of that was basically it. And so then you start like, well, dang, maybe I can't catch a pop-up. Maybe I'm just that bad of it.
You don't get to hit except in certain stadiums. Yeah.
Yeah, and then you're out there, there's a pop-up right on the mound. You're just like looking around. Somebody's going to catch this, right? What am I? You're diving out of the way of the ball. And like, it's
good stuff, man.
Anyway. Well, hey, thank you all for listening. We appreciate it. Go out there and make it a great Friday's Eve. We'll talk to you soon.
Out. Go Pack.